What is MVC? Model View Controller. And here the model is sort of like the data that we recreate the app from. It's the model. The view is what we see, the various assets that we see on stage, and the controller tends to be more like the events that will accept data and update the view, or have the view change the data. The controller sort of sits in the middle there. Now this is a common design pattern, and lots of time has been spent by many people on Model View Controller, and there are many experts, and there's slightly different ways of doing things. So hopefully my way here isn't so bad. I mean, it works for me. Generally what's happening here is this is dividing up the code. So rather than having all the code in one big file, it often breaks down to be about equal amount of duties, in a sense, amongst all of these things. So let's have a look. All right. So here we have a project.html page, and over on the left-hand side, it might be hard for you to see, I have an MVC folder. So in the MVC folder, I'm going to make a new file and call this one model.js. So here's model.js, and this is where we'll handle all of the data and connections to the database if needed, or local storage, or whatever we're doing. And we'll start off by using the module pattern with a variable called app. Var app is equal to a function. If you haven't seen the what is about the module pattern, you're welcome to take a look at that. Self-executing. There we go. So this will give us an app namespace, var app, and we'll do this in each of them. So as a matter of fact, well, I'll just go one more step, and we will say, well, it just depends on what we're doing. That would be model, so it would be app.model. We'll make a model class. App.model is equal to a function. Like so. And I'll probably store most of the stuff on there. And what I tend to like to do is I like to say var m is equal to this. So everything that I make in the model, if I want it to be accessible from the outside, then I will store it on m. If I don't want it to be accessible from the outside, then I will not store it on the m. And that sort of gets the template for all three pages, so we'll save that. And file save as. Model, we'll call this one the view. And I just adjust this slightly, app.view, and a little v, v for view, m for model. And then we'll save this one, file save as. And then this one is the controller. And app.controller. I actually don't, I'll do this for now, but we're going to adjust this slightly. I don't store an object for a controller. I just run a function right on this one to get the controls going. All right, and we want to open up those model and view and controller. So we have a project, we have a model, a view, and a controller. Now, I went through that pretty quickly. Can you see that okay? Just give you a second to have a look at that. So if you haven't done the module pattern before, that's all of this stuff. And then inside, we've got a class that we've defined. And then we've just stored a variable that's pointing to the this of the class. Okay, so And now back in our main project, we need to import those. So up above, we need to call them. So that would look like script. It doesn't really matter the order. Source equals, I usually think of it as model view controller, so that would be model.js. End of script. So we can copy that. 2 and 3. This one is the view. And this one is the controller with a small c. Thank you very much. Okay, and there's our model view controller. Now, the first thing we might want to do then, once we get into our code, is we can say var data is equal to, well, yeah, I usually call it data, is equal to a new app dot model, like so. Now, all of these things may need to have access to some variables in an easy way. I mean, we could pass in stage and stage W and all that kind of stuff here as parameters, but that's a little bit of a pain. So what I usually do is take these outside and put them as global variables up top here. So var stage, like that, just declare them here. Stage width and stage height, var stage width, var stage height. There may be a few in the future that we put up in here as well, but that's it in general. And then down here, these are no longer vars. So a slight adjustment to the template to handle model view controller, like that. So they were declared up above, and what that means is within my data object, and within, I'm going to make another one here for the view, var view is equal to new app view, like so. Inside the view, we already have the stage. We don't have to pass it in. Now, what we may want to pass in is the data. So often we want to take the data as usually the first thing that we have. Hey, if we're going to build something, we want to know what it looks like, so we want the data for what we build. And so we would then take the data and pass it in to the view. We're going to do something similar. We could do it exactly all the same and say controller is equal to a new app controller at the moment. In this case, we'd probably pass in the data and the view. As mentioned, I do it a slightly different way. I just call a function on the controller to get us started. App.make controls, like something like that. And I pass in the data and the view. So I have two objects, one that represents the data and one that will allow us access to all of the view. And then I pass those two things into a function called make controls. And that's kind of it for the main app then. So there might be other things, some initial animations of things or something like that, maybe that I'll animate in here on the view. So it's not quite, we're not quite controlling it. It's it could be in the controller, but it's just not events. It's sort of like, hey, this is the initial animations, and sometimes they look nice to have something in here. It's a little bit embarrassing. Hey, look at my app I made. Ta-da. It's actually quite nice in comparison, but maybe it would be good to show them a little bit something up front here, some animations. Okay, so there's our data being called. Here's our view. Now we need to, in the view, we need to collect that data. So we'll pop that back into the view. There's our view function here. We collect the data. Super. And how it then works, shall we just make something? Well, let's make something in the model, I guess. So here we are in the model. And if I want something to be available elsewhere, then I would store it on the M, and that gives us a public property or method. So we might say m.colors is equal to frame dot pink, comma, frame dot orange, comma, frame dot blue. Oh, look at that data that we have. Okay. So this could be much more data. It could be coming from local storage. It could be coming from a database, or it might just be some information that we have just locally like this. So we save that. We come back to the project. Now when we make a new data, if we wanted to, we could ask here zog, before we go too much farther, zog data dot colors. And let's see if that's working. So we save that. Here's a view. We save that. Controller, model, and view all ready. And launch it in a browser. And we get some green. And if we pull up F12, make controls is not a function. Oh, right. There's our array, though, that came back to show us our colors. That's great. But I forgot, in the controller, we're now just calling make controls. So over in the controller, we just have app dot make controls is equal to this function. We have no this. We need to receive the data and the view like that. Now I quite often will just collect that as D and V. And then we just get used to using D for the data and V for the, which actually reminds me back on the model. That's why I hesitated. I couldn't quite remember why I was hesitating there. I usually use D for data. D for data. So that's no problem. D, the variable D for data is this, which is really the constructor, reference to the constructor there. And whatever this is on will be, colors will be added to the object made from that. So here we are making the object from the model. So colors gets added. That's what this is right here. Colors will get added to that and therefore be part of data, and therefore we'll have it. We'll also be able to pass it into the view. So for instance, we can go to the view now. Let's just save up the model. It had the colors with the D. We can go to the view now, and we can make a circle in here. Now, if we want this circle to be accessible by the controller, which we very well may be, imagine that we're going to click on the circle with the controller, then we can say v dot circle is equal to a new zim dot circle. And let's make it 100, and we'll populate it with a random color from the data. It's entirely possible, if this gets a bit more complex, that we could actually put that, add it to the data as a method, a helper method for us. So it might look like this: v dot get random color. So we just want to build stuff here. We don't want to do much calculation. It could be complex. Now getting a random color isn't really the end of the world. I shuffle the array. But there's a question of, like, if I shuffle the array here, is that okay for the data? You know, you're trying to say, all right, you know, who's really got control of those colors? It really is the data. So if we're going to do any shuffling, it should be done in the data. Otherwise, we run the risk of I change something here and it messes up something back there. So, you know, okay, we'll get a random color. So that would look like var color is equal to data's get color. And before I mentioned that we should, I was just using D. So D represents my data object, V represents my view object. Okay, so I'm saying var color, hey, we're going to go back to the data to get a random color. Now, if we didn't do that in the simplest form, perhaps we should try a simple form yet. We could just say d dot colors at 0. So there we go. We just got the first color in the array. All right, that shouldn't be too hard to do. If we needed that, we could get it here. Or indeed, if we needed to loop through all of the colors in the array to make a bunch of circles, we could do that here without any difficulty. All right, so there's our circle. Now we add it to the stage. Now if we didn't have a global stage way back here, if we didn't declare a global stage, then we would have to pass into the model the stage, like that. And then we could collect the stage. So in the model, we could collect the stage, etc. But luckily, in all of these apps, we have access to the stage, so we can just say v.circle, I'll come back to this in a second, .center on stage. What I'm going to come back to is the fact that I don't like putting v dot in front of everything. So often I'll just do this. Var circle is equal to v dot circle. So what we're doing is we're basically taking how we would normally code this. Normally we would just code it var circle equals, and then we just have circle, center on the stage, etc. As a matter of fact, this has happened quite often where I start coding a project, and then I say, ooh, this is getting big, I should split this up. And then I have to take the project and put this stuff in the view, and when I do, I basically keep it exactly the same, except I throw this little extra step in here of saying v.circle. So just this one right here, like intercepts in a sense. There's our local variable, and I can use that as we go. But the v.circle being inserted there allows me to access the circle from outside. Remember, v is on this, so that means when we make a new app, v, that's v, so we'll have now a circle property on here, which means we've got a view.circle if we need it. We pass the view into make controls. We look over in controls. Here we collect the view. So in here, we now have a v.circle just from adding v.circle there. Isn't that cool? All right, so circle.center on stage. Great. We've got a circle that's using the colors from the data, from our model. Shall we see? So here and refresh. There's a circle, pink, that must have been the first one. No more error, we corrected that, that's great. So there's a pink circle. If we were to get the second color in the circle, was that orange? There's an orange circle. If we were to get the third. Shall we just connect this up? We were pretty close. We were saying var color is equal to d.getRandomColor. So rather than messing up any data, like we could get a random number from the array without messing up the data, no problem. But rather than us doing it here in the view, let's let the data give us a random color. So we'll put color in here, whatever we're getting back from the data's getRandomColor. So I'll just copy that. We save it back on the model here. I say d.getRandomColor equals this function. So, and it will return some sort of random color. Now, what am I going to do? I have to think about it. Now that I've got the colors here, I'm in the data, it's my choice. Should I shuffle that array and just get the first thing? Or should I keep the array not shuffled? Will it matter? It might just depend on what the app is doing. I could run a little, a random number out of this, the length of the array, that kind of thing. Could be, probably do that in one return. Return d.colors. We could do the same thing here. We could say var colors is equal to. So this object, the reference gets stored in d.colors, so we could access it from outside if we need it. And then we assign whatever's in there, the reference to colors. So now down below we can just use colors because we're in a local variable of colors. So return colors at colors dot length -1, I believe, and we want to roll a random number, a sim.rand of that. Okay, so that's how we would do it without shuffling the array. I tend to like to just shuffle the array. return colors.shuffle. Return zim.shuffle colors. My apologies. And then at 0. So we may as well just get the first thing of the shuffled array. So you see what I mean? That's kind of neat. Hey, we shuffle that array colors, and then we ask for the first thing in that shuffled array. Since there aren't very many, it takes just a microsecond to shuffle that. Okay, super. Let's see if it works. So now we should get a random color. Blue, 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 orange, blue, blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, pink, pink, blue, blue. It's the strangest random numbers I've ever had. Lots of blues. There's an orange. I guess it's working. Pink, you know, it's getting there. Okay, so now to control it, and then we're done. This is model view controller. We've got some in the view. So in the end, your view looks like a whole bunch of these objects that are made up. Each object that we make that we want to access from outside, we just slip this in to what would normally be, you know, your normal coding. We just slip in that we've stored a version of it on the object. Okay, and that allows us to gain access from the controller. So for instance, this circle is available here. So in make things, we can say, hey, v.circle.on click. Call this function. And what should we do when we click the circle? We can make it disappear. So this has a stage, yay, stage.removeChild. Circle. Woohoo. So here's our controller where we're controlling things, and we refresh. I click, and it doesn't go away. What happened? Oh, did we update stage? No, we didn't update the stage. So let's do that. Stage.removeChild. So anytime something doesn't update and you think it should, remember your stage.update. Even the professionals can forget that. Just temporarily, that is. Refresh, click, click. Even the professionals remember to check their circle is not defined on the controller. What happened there? Remove child circle. Okay, remove child v.circle. Well, let's just see that with the update stage just to show you that that wouldn't have worked. I know it wouldn't have worked, so we save that. And we refresh here, and I press. See? It didn't update. But now we update the stage like so, and very confidently he comes here and he goes click, and it's gone. Okay, so 2 errors in that one, the v.circle. Now, sometimes that leads me to often use e.target. So stage.removeChild e.target. Okay, well, I mean, there you go. If you had a bunch of circles, that might also work. Not only that, we want a finger on that circle to show we can click it. I often will apply that in the view just while we're making it. I consider it part of the view. So circle dot cursor equals a pointer, like so. And we refresh here. Fadoomp. And there we've got a pointer on that circle. We click and it goes. So that's model view controller. In our project, we've got some simple things. You might want to check out Ornamate. So that's at zim.js.com/code/ornamate.html. That was our holiday card from Zim, and it uses model view controller, and it's very well documented. So that would be a good one to look at, zim.js.com/code/ornamate. And it starts off in much the same way. We animate some things in at this point. The model is saving things out to the local storage. So not quite to a database, but to local storage. So you're getting an idea of how that would work. So it's a fairly large, or much a larger model than this anyway. And the view has a bunch of things in the view to see. So you can see that there's a good long listing of things and how we basically just repeat this, repeat, all within this one view object here, view class. So you would just put the next thing underneath. And then the controller, there's definitely more in the controller as well. However, it did divide up almost in three, quite nicely. The controller, the view, and the model. So you can see all that in action. I'm inventor Dan Zen. We just did what is Model View Controller here at zimjs.com. Have a great day.